In Struggle of Empires, 2 to 7 players take the role of one of the major powers of the 18th century and fight in both Europe and the colonies over the course of 3 rounds or wars. The twist to the game is that in each war, players must form into 2 alliances. Once allied with a player, you cannot fight each other for the duration of that war. At the end of each war, area control will be assessed in 11 territories and victory points will be awarded accordingly. Control is established by control markers, which are mostly a fixed resource each game. Depending on player count, there will be a certain number of neutral markers placed on the board at the beginning of each war, and these are ripe for the picking by anyone. Other than that, though, after the initial placement of player control markers at the beginning of the first war, control markers can only be added to by attacking other players' control markers. If you win, their marker is removed and replaced by one of yours. This definitely puts the struggle in Struggle of Empires. While I had heard the name before, I had barely seen any info about Struggle of Empires, even though it has a solid rating on Board Game Geek. But in late 2020, I saw that publisher Eagle-Gryphon Games had recently come out with a deluxe version with upgraded components and a new rulebook that had been updated containing several variants, including 2 by the original designer, Martin Wallace. So, I picked up the game as a gift to myself because, hey, I deserve nice things. Well, I have to say I made an excellent choice. I love area control games, even though I don't win them as often as I like. Plus, I love when a game feels as epic while playing it as the theme and box art advertise. Struggle of Empires is aptly named. It can be nasty right from the start. And if this was simply a dice chucker, I would still probably like it, but not as much. It really is an interactive Euro that balances income and expansion into a tense, struggle between taking risks to expand your control and protecting yourself so that you aren't vulnerable to the schemes of your opponents. As for the stuff you do, each war consists of 5 or 6 rounds based on player count. Each round, players alternate until everyone has had 2 turns. You can build and move units, snatch bonus tiles that give you nice advantages throughout the game, and ultimately go after neutral markers and your human opponents to expand your control. Combat is where the rubber meets the road in this game, and it is swift regardless of whether it is sweet or painful. There is luck involved and the dice can definitely crush you, but the dice rolling mechanic encourages you to build up your strength before rolling to increase your odds, because the dice can never increase your strength by more than 5 points. When you fight to take a control marker, first you calculate your base strength. This is usually 1 point for each of your and your allies' units, if any, in the battle. There are also tiles which you can acquire during the game that might give you additional bonuses, but going into battle you basically know the base strength of each side. The actual moment of combat is each of the 2 opponents rolling 2 6-sided dice, but instead of adding the dice together, you take the difference between them and add the number to your base strength. So, rolling a 6 and a 5 is usually great in most games, but in Struggle of Empires, it's a 1, 6 minus 5. Once the roll is added to base strengths, units will be lost and a single control marker may switch hands. Rolling a 7 is also a problem, but you can read the rules or watch my instructional videos to see more about that. The fact that combat is so simple and fast keeps players engaged. There's so much other stuff going on in the game that it would have been less fun if the combat lasted several rounds. There's a plethora of choices that the game's mechanics require you to make. First and foremost, there are 2 alliances which are formed at the beginning of each war. You cannot directly attack an ally. This mechanic dictates a lot of what you'll be able to do during that particular war. Allies can, but are not required to, lend support to combat strength for allies during battles. Negotiation is encouraged and can lead to some interesting moments. The alliances can also affect your expansion decisions as well, due to the location of each nation's control markers and troops on the map. A hotly contested victory point region from one war might be completely silent in the next due to shifting alliances. Alliances are formed through an auction at the beginning of each war. Since money can be tight, players will have to balance how much they are willing to spend to control alliance formation, against having money for doing other things like buying bonus tiles and even attacking, which costs 2 gold to initiate. I did a video about how the auction works, and you can find the link in this video's description. As I mentioned earlier, economy plays such a large role in the decision-making process throughout the game. Each player starts with 10 gold, and while they'll earn some throughout the game, they will likely be spending it just as fast, and it always seems like there isn't enough. If ever you do not have enough money for something you want to do, you must tax your population. For every 2 gold that you need, you must draw an unrest token, which is bad. Unrest tokens range from 0 to 2, with the vast majority of tokens being 1s. Every time you lose a unit and every time you tax, you draw an unrest token. If a player has 20 or more unrest at the end of the game, that player is eliminated. Players with less than 20 will still lose victory points if they have the most or second most unrest at the end of the game. And since money and actions are so intertwined, unrest hangs over every decision you make. Struggle of Empires is unapologetically tense. It is not for players who like low interaction, solitaire gaming experiences. You have to go into it with some expectation of saltiness and disappointment. It is unlikely that everything will go your way. Someone with more money handcuffs your plans during the alliance auction, takes the tile you were going to pick before you get the chance, or keeps attacking you and succeeding with better dice rolls. But the game's design allows for ups and downs, ebbs and flows, and gives opportunities for catching up if one player gets a little too aggressive. I've played at 2 and 4 players and enjoyed it both ways. At 2 players, it had more of a chess-like feel with less competing for tiles and territories, but there were still some tense moments to get the adrenaline rushing. I understand it is even better with a full 7 players. If you want to see some gameplay, I put a link to our 4-player game in the description of this video. Struggle of Empires is not for the lighthearted gamer, but if you have a group that likes some intelligent fisticuffs and can remain friendly after 4 to 5 hours of thoughtful strategy and quick, deadly combat, I bet you will not struggle to have a lot of fun. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe for more board game content.